Welcome back. Been a minute, been a little busy. Mentioned I've been making a whole bunch of apple brandy. Getting ready to fire up the stove for the last run of that. That is going to be the base for all of our absinthe and all of our gin for the next year. And we're also going to release a little bit of unaged apple brandy and lay down some barrels for an aged apple brandy, which I have done in the past, but it's never been a regular part of the lineup. And now it's going to become a regular part of the lineup. The apple brandy was always released under what I'm going to talk about today, which is the experimental series. I always feel like I'm beating a dead horse here when I talk to you about why I do what I do. But you're going to keep hearing it. The idea with 451 Spirits, the whole goal was to make things other people aren't making, to think outside of the box and not just trod the same course. And so even our regular lineup that you see out in stores, even though that stuff's weird, the experimental series is a way for me to just stay fresh, stay creative, and explore things that don't make sense to even try to distribute. Deal with our overlords at the State Liquor Control Department. Just do things that are fun and like see what happens. Which leads me to today's word of the day. Aleatoric. Welcoming chance and randomness and just seeing what happens. I started the experimental series with that in mind. Just to do limited releases of stuff, and then you have to come here to get it. It's always very small runs, like a couple cases. I have a little 10-gallon version of my big pot still. We have done a number of them over the years. Right now, what I have in the shop is the 100% rice whiskey. Rice, not rye. All rice, double distilled, and oak. It's, even though it's rice and no corn at all or any other grains, it's the closest flavor-wise to bourbon as anything I've ever put out. The other two were collabs with Brewdog, where I took their hot chocolate stout, Chocolate Libre, and then their Patriot Pulp Blueberry IPA, distilled those, and then barrel aged them in used whiskey barrels for about 8 months. I didn't want to overpower the flavor of the beer that it came from, so I took what is basically like an approach to like Reposado tequila, where I wanted to rest it in barrels just to mellow it out a little bit, but not completely take away the source of where it came from. That project came about during the pandemic lockdown. Sure, all of you have fond memories of that. But at the time, all the brewers had made a lot of beer because they had anticipated on being open. Suddenly they were closed, and they were just sitting on beer that was just going to go to waste. It was going out of date, not fresh, not the way they wanted to serve it. At the same time, sure you remember, you could not get sanitizer, no matter where you looked. So all of us small distillers were taking anything we get our hands on, making sanitizer, pretty much around the clock. And then eventually the big companies caught up, like Purell and everyone like that, like didn't need us anymore. But the brewers were still sitting on all this beer that was going out of date, and since I was not open or doing tours or anything, they hit me up and they're like, hey, do you want this? Otherwise we're just going to dump it. And I was like, well, I don't have anything going on, so I'll take it. Distilled a little bit different than I would have for making Sanny. Like making sanitizer, I just want to maximize the alcohol content, get it out to people that needed it. But distilled it different to try to preserve those flavors. But I ended up making a really tasty spirit. The experimental series, it's just wanting to explore what is possible with distilling. Again, the whole reason why I do this. I'm gonna finally make bourbon, I think. 10 years in. But I never wanted to do bourbon because it's already been tried and proven. Like, I don't want to make what everyone else is making. Like, making bourbon to me feels like having KFC every night of the week. Like, don't you want to taste something different? Turns out a lot of people don't want to taste something different. So what I'm doing is the love of distilling, and that branches out into pretty much every other aspect of my life. I've always been drawn to like weird, niche, esoteric things. I have a whole collection of cameras that objectively are terrible, and you could shoot way better photos with your phone, but I love their quirks, and I want to explore the quirks, and I love the history of like why those quirks exist in different spirits around the world. But the experimental series is a way to keep doing that, and when you come in here, you never know what you're gonna find. I'll obviously like post what I have available, but I would like to build a library of even more weird, quirky stuff. This morning I just went and picked up more cherry juice, which is going to be the next batch of cherry picker, which I'll talk about in a later episode. The first experimental was a nod to Pechuga style mezcal, which if you're not familiar with, go ahead and look it up. Otherwise, we'll get to that in the next episode. Super bizarre and interesting. Yeah, I don't like making the same stuff all the time. I want to explore and see what's possible. I like doing that with food. I like doing that with music. Life is short. I just want to see what all is out there with the time I have. Today's macro, micro, whatever we're calling it. Macro. I'm a giant Jeff Rosenstock fan. He's playing tomorrow night. I'm going to be going to that show. If you like ska, spastic, weird, hyperactive, intelligent, indie punk music, check him out. I love everything he does. He DIY to the core, like me. But has gone on to do a lot bigger stuff. He just did Craig of the Creek, which is like a kids show, and he did the whole soundtrack for the movie and the show. So his old band is Bomb the Music Industry, and I would like to bomb the liquor industry because there's a lot of corruption and just a lot of bullshit, to be frank. Micro. I mentioned our word of the day, aleatoric. I learned that word from my friend Phil Adams, a local photographer, and just all around good person and very interesting person. Every day he's always posting these sanity strolls and shooting photos, and it's fascinating to watch the way he looks at the world. And what I love is he appreciates the little minute details that most people in their day-to-day life just walk past and don't even acknowledge. And he finds the beauty in these little fragments of the world that would otherwise go unnoticed. He also does a really cool project where he'll get prints made of some of his photos, get those made into magnets, and slap them around town, and like give you hints on where you can find them. And just a way to make art accessible to everyone, which what he's doing, 83 Gallery, everyone, like art should not be a luxury item. Like, finding beauty and experience in the world should not be a luxury. Like, things are hard enough. And I've kind of realized, like, all my people, like, this is what they know, this is what they care about. So, check out Phil Adams. Come find me if you want to see Jeff Rosenstock tomorrow night. I've rambled a lot, and we'll try and make sense of this come editing time. But other than that, thank you. Take care. Cheers.